Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to the channel. Now, recently I've recreated a lot of historical failures of aviation. Things that were just poorly thought out, inefficient, complicated, and I figured, you know what? It's my turn. I want to invent an innovative airplane that nobody needs. So this is what my scrap brain has thought of. Imagine a catamaran, and instead of there being boat in between the two hulls, there's just wing. It's gonna be like a one-wing seaplane, I guess. Now, at this point, you may be asking me, what's the benefit of a one-wing seaplane? Why would I invent such a thing? What problem am I solving out there? Well, you see, I've already thought this through. See, most planes have two wings, which means double the chance of something going wrong with your flight. But with my one-wing seaplane, I will reduce the chances of problems like that by 50% and give the added bonus of being able to land anywhere in the ocean. See, it turns out if you're a seaplane, most of the Earth becomes a runway. So you're really not strapped for any places to land if anything does go wrong, which it won't. It'd be much less likely because you only have one wing to deal with instead of two. All right, so let's get building this thing. So the reason why I said imagine a catamaran is because I'm actually imagining two bodies of this plane, one on either side of the central wing. So it's gonna kind of look like a catamaran, and especially the fact that it's gonna be a seaplane is also adds to that. All right, so let's start building this central wing here. So the curious thing is gonna be, what kind of issues is a single wing going to present to me? Most of the historical failures I've recreated had some issue that made them just not viable, but I was able to usually make them somewhat more viable in Trailmakers, so maybe I won't run into that issue. But I'm gonna be building a very large wing in the center, hopefully being able to give a decent amount of lift here, and I'm even gonna give this wing some ailerons to help with our roll. And I will be using elevators in the back for pitch purposes. I don't think elevators technically count as wings if they're just being used as a control surface. I'm not gonna be using them much for lift. I'm gonna try to center the lift around this wing in particular, which might be interesting. All right, here is my wing design. You can see the ailerons in the back working, and kind of put an interesting shape up here in the front just to make it less boring than a flat wing. All right, so I should be able to add some vertical stabilizers to the tail. Oh, I didn't even think about propulsion. What am I gonna do for propulsion? Jets are probably gonna be the easier thing to attach here. And plus, it's 2022. I gotta think about my invention from the modern perspective. We're going into the future here. People are gonna be using this for decades to come. Gonna sell these designs to Lockheed. All right, there we go. Now I've got pitch and roll. So now let's just make this thing fly, and I also got to make it be able to sit on water. I forgot about that part. That's a pretty important part of a seaplane, isn't it? All right, there, we got a whole bunch of jet engines underneath, and you know what? Let's just try it right now without any landing gear or, you know, sea capabilities. Holy cow, this thing's flying kind of straight, and now it's not. Hold on. Whoa. 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 This thing is working surprisingly well for its very first test flight. I was expecting way more center of lift issues for some reason. Like, this thing isn't bad at all. Did I invent something good? Did I accidentally invent something good? All right, we gotta make this thing sea capable. All right, look at this. This is just its soaring ability right here. Look at this thing. This could be one of my greatest inventions in Trailmakers yet. All right, but adding these sea legs, if that's what I want to call them, this could ruin the whole thing. It's already working. And when it's already working and you add more to it, you always run the risk of messing everything up. All right, I've just realized something. I am not using the potential of this airplane. We can make the bodies of this airplane bigger. It's kind of funny. This airplane has two bodies on the outside and a wing in the middle. It's literally the inverse of a normal airplane, where the body's in the middle and the wings are on the sides. But you know, sometimes you gotta think outside of the box, or I guess turn the box inside out in this case. But I need to give this thing some more body. Like, this is small, little thin body. This thing has not been to the gym, okay? Looking a little thin here. So we're gonna beef it up with some hull blocks. Not only will it add some beefiness to it, but it'll also add some buoyancy to it. All right, there we go. Now the body of this thing is made out of mostly hull blocks, so it should float in the water, but let's see first, does it fly as effectively still? Whoa, oh, that was a little bit weird. But by the looks of it, it's actually still pretty fine. I might need to move the wing back a little bit. My center of lift seems a little bit far forward, which it looks like that too. But let's see if we can land in the water now. I need some air brakes on this thing. This thing it just soars. Hey, not bad. Oh, man, this thing just cruises too. It's not even slowing down that much. So interesting though is it actually seems front heavy sitting in the water. No, that does still make sense. No, it does still make sense. Yeah, here, I think the obvious solution is just to move the entire wing back. Let's move it back more towards the center. Literally centering our center of lift. Ooh, what about lifting off the water though? That wasn't an issue. All right, so now, as far as straight flight goes, this actually seems pretty level now. It does lift up a little bit. It's pretty maneuverable too, all things considered. I'm really surprised at how well this is turning out. Is this actually a good idea? I mean, I know there are planes that are essentially like made out of wing, like they are just one wing. There is at least one more advantage I want to give this thing. I want it to have actual landing gear so it has the option to land on land. I want it to be multifunctional, multi-purpose. I want it to be a seaplane as well as a land plane. And an airplane, believe it or not, as well. All right, because yeah, right now landing like that is not ideal. Lots of sparks. The paint is not gonna like that. Okay, I've done some work on this thing. There's a couple of little things that make it somewhat difficult to take off and land. Well, let me show you what I've done to this thing. I've added some landing gear. You can see it got landing gear on the back there at kind of an angle. And then we got landing gear in the front here. And I've done this in this particular way so that it has a natural tilt up as we're sitting on the runway. And that allows me to be more likely to be able to lift off the ground. It catches the air underneath the wing facing in the upwards direction to make it easier to lift off from the runway, because I am having a little bit of an issue lifting off. It actually feels kind of realistic how long it takes me to get up to speed to be able to lift off of a runway. The other thing I've done is I have steering up on the front, and the steering is hooked up to logic so that it'll only steer like this when the landing gear is down. Then when I retract the landing gear, those same controls only feed into the ailerons for roll. So that's kind of handy. So this actually enables me to taxi on the runway and aim myself where I want to go. But now, let me show you the other issue. Let me go ahead and... Oh, okay, the taxiing isn't working that well. Hold on. Oh, you know what? We can just take off like that then. I'll show you a real takeoff in a bit. But let me show you the flight. The flight actually feels relatively stable and pretty controllable when I'm at speed. When I start slowing down, the roll gets really, really slow. And that makes the landing a little bit more difficult. Oh, let me put the landing gear up. What am I thinking? So the landing gear can also come up, you know, when you're doing water landings and water takeoffs and stuff like that. So let's actually try a water landing. Water landing should, in theory, be safer and easier than land landing. At least in Trailmakers, probably not in real life. But there's a lot less to worry about when it comes to collisions when we're doing a water landing here. So there we go. No problem with that water landing. I don't think I can actually taxi in the water. Oh, you know what? The roll actually does work a little bit for yaw. When we're in the water, at least. So, that's good enough. Alright, let's see about taking off, though. Can I take off? You know what? No problem. Water is actually pretty easy. So now let's try a land landing, or an aircraft carrier landing, and then I'll show you how it actually takes off from an aircraft carrier. My goal was to be able to have it lift off of level ground without having to basically dive off of the edge and then catch the air. All right, I'm circling around, trying to line myself up for a landing here. I'm gonna go ahead and put the landing gear down. There we go. All right, let's cut the throttle. Slow down a little bit and come in for a nice slow landing. Oh. A little bit bouncy on the landing there. Not the smoothest landing I've had. But it wasn't, you know, we didn't break anything, so that's always a win. All right, so now for the real takeoff. As you can see, I'm taking as much runway as I can here. The goal is to get the wheels to lift off of the runway before the runway disappears from underneath me. We don't have a lot of runway to deal with on this aircraft carrier here. Let's see if I can pull it off. Here we go. Okay, come on. Come on. Yes! You see, it's just before the end of the runway. It feels more realistic that way. Like, this runway is the exact right size for this thing to be able to take off. A lot of planes and Trailmakers, when you build them, you can pretty much take off almost vertically. You can take off from a standstill. Very short takeoff and landing. But this one actually needs a longer takeoff, which gives that realism factor. I'm being historically accurate with this historical failure that I'm trying to insert into history that doesn't actually exist. I forgot to put up my landing gear that whole time, but I'm going to use it now anyway. So let's come in back for a landing. Man, it's so bouncy on the landing. Ugh, I don't like that. You know what? Can I get a landing that's not bouncy? I just want a nice, smooth landing. Let's see here. Oh man, this thing is terrible at landing. You know what? Maybe it's just because land isn't its strong suit. I mean, it was built for the ocean, so maybe ocean landings are just its strong suit, and landing on land is an emergency thing only. If for some reason, out of the 70% of Earth that is covered in water, and you can't find water to land in, then resort to the land landing and find a runway somewhere or a field or something. But it's gonna give you a warning right now, it's not gonna be the smoothest experience. All right, one more try for good measure. Let's see if I can get a slightly smoother experience this time. Here we go. Come on, man, stop bouncing, man, come on. All right, well, that was the best one yet for a land landing. So here it is, my contribution to the crazy historical plane ideas. The single wing, 2 cockpit seaplane. It has the ability to take off and land from sea as well as from land, but it is much more comfortable on sea, at least smooth seas. So what do you guys think? If I submitted this idea to some military back in like the 1940s or something, do you think they would have taken it seriously? Or does this thing deserve to be left on the drawing board, much like a lot of the other inventions throughout history? Let me know what you think down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, you'll probably enjoy some other content you can find on the channel on the end screen right here. Hope this video has earned your subscription. Anyway, this has been ScrapMan, and I'll see you next time. Bye.